Leviathan, according to the biblical narrative, is a formidable creature that represents chaos and opposition to divinity. In the book of Job, it is described as an imposing and fearsome being, a creature of extraordinary proportions and powers that no human could hope to dominate. The description in Job 41 is particularly vivid, presenting the Leviathan as an almost invincible being. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fishhook or tie down its tongue with a rope? Lay your hand on it, remember the battle. You will not do it again. Behold, the hope of overcoming it is false. Will not one be overwhelmed at the sight of it? Job chapter 41, verse 1 to 9. This creature symbolizes more than a mere sea monster. It is a representation of evil and chaos that only God can control and conquer. In Isaiah chapter 27, verse 1, it is prophesied that God will punish the Leviathan. In that day, the Lord, with his severe, great and strong sword, will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea. Psalm chapter 74, verse 14 also refers to God's defeat of Leviathan, symbolizing his power over the forces of chaos. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the people of the wilderness. These verses reflect the belief that, although Leviathan is a powerful creature, it is no match for divine omnipotence. The figure of Leviathan invites us to reflect on God's sovereignty over all creatures and the forces of nature, as well as on the eternal struggle between good and evil. The interpretation of the figure of Leviathan has varied over time and across different cultures. Some scholars suggest it might have been a real animal, such as a crocodile or whale, that over time acquired a deeper symbolic meaning. Others see in Leviathan a metaphor for political enemies or nations opposed to God's people. In any case, Leviathan remains one of the most mysterious and debated in biblical literature. Currently, the term Leviathan has been used in political and philosophical contexts to describe a powerful and dominant entity or force, often related to the government or the state, as posed by Thomas Hobbes in his work Leviathan, where it represents the structure of the state as a great artificial being composed of the collective will of its citizens. The Leviathan is a figure that has captured the imagination of many throughout the centuries. In the Bible, it is mentioned in various books, mainly in the Old Testament, as a powerful and fearful marine creature, often associated with chaos and evil. In Psalm chapter 104, verse 26, the Leviathan is described in a way that suggests a literal existence. There go the ships and the Leviathan, which thou hast made to play therein. This verse indicates that God created Leviathan, allowing it to dwell in the sea and be part of his creation. The interpretation of Leviathan has varied over time. Some biblical scholars suggest it could have been a real animal, like a crocodile or a whale, that over time acquired a deeper symbolic meaning. Others see in Leviathan a metaphor for political enemies or nations opposed to the people of God. In contemporary culture, the term Leviathan has been used to describe a powerful and dominant entity or force, often in a political or philosophical context. Thomas Hobbes, for example, used the term in his work Leviathan to represent the structure of the state as a great artificial being composed of the collective will of its citizens. The figure of Leviathan invites us to reflect on God's sovereignty over all creatures and the forces of nature, as well as the eternal struggle between good and evil. Despite the various interpretations, Leviathan remains one of the most mysterious and debated figures in literature. Biblical, and its legacy continues to influence modern thought and culture. Now then, in the depths of its meaning and its representation through the ages. The Bible tells us of a literal beast, with detailed descriptions that evoke the image of a dragon, a colossal creature that no human could hope to subdue. This Leviathan is described as an animal of huge proportions, with impenetrable scales, sharp teeth, gleaming eyes, fire in its mouth and smoke in its nostrils. Some compare it to a crocodile, others to a whale, and yet others to a snake. Its appearance is so terrifying that the mere sight of it could strip any mortal of all hope. Its power is so immense that only God can confront and defeat it. Verse 18 of chapter 41 of Job tells us that its sneezes emit sparks, and verse 19 describes flames of fire and smoke coming from its mouth as from a boiling pot. We are told that there is nothing on earth that resembles it. It was made to have no fear. It never faces the proudest, and is the king of all beasts. The Leviathan not only appears in the book of Job, but also in the Psalms, Isaiah, Amos, and the book of Enoch. In some texts, the Leviathan is a metaphor for a powerful enemy, such as Babylon or Egypt, which oppressed the people of Israel. To learn more about its description, chapter 41 of the book of Job is a rich source of details about this being. The destruction of the Leviathan, according to the scriptures, will be the work of God. Isaiah chapter 27 verse 1 tells us that the Lord will punish the Leviathan with his sword, an omnipotent and powerful sword. But here arises another question: does God have a sword? The answer is yes, but not a physical sword, rather his word. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12 tells us that the word of God is living and effective, sharper than any double-edged sword. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 17 also talks about the word of God as the sword of the Spirit. Thus, God will finish with the Leviathan by just pronouncing it, and this one will have no chance against its creator. The existence of a creature of such magnitude remains a subject of great interest and debate. Where could this enormous beast be found? According to the Bible, the Leviathan lives in the depths of the sea. Psalm chapter 104 verse 26 mentions that by the sea circulate the ships and the Leviathan, the monster that God made for fun. As a curious fact, Antarctica, the fourth largest continent and known as the frozen continent, is the surface with the most terrain ever stepped on by a human being, and its low temperatures make this a place unknown. The mysterious sounds captured by the NOAA, like Julia and Train, are fascinating examples of unexplained phenomena that have captured the public's imagination. Although most of these sounds have plausible scientific explanations like icebergs colliding or shifting, their enigmatic nature has fueled speculation about unknown creatures in the oceanic depths. The Leviathan, a creature of mythic proportions, has been interpreted in various ways throughout history. For some, it represents evil, chaos, and rebellion against God, symbolizing the forces seeking to destroy the divine order. For others, it is a testimony to the sovereignty and majesty of God, a demonstration of his power and wisdom in creating and ruling over all creatures. In Jewish mythology and in apocryphal texts like the Book of Enoch, the Leviathan is described in even more detail. It is mentioned that at the beginning of creation, God made a female Leviathan to dwell in the abysses of the ocean, and a male called the terrestrial monster that resides in a hidden desert east of the Garden of Eden. These narratives add layers of meaning and symbolism to the figure of the Leviathan, enriching its place in mythology and religion. Ocean exploration has revealed that there is much more in the oceans of what we know. It is estimated that more than 35% of the marine species remain a mystery, and considering that 95% of the ocean volume has not been explored, it is reasonable to think that there could exist unknown creatures adapted to the high pressures and darkness of the ocean floor. The possibility of discovering new marine species is an exciting prospect that continues to drive the research and exploration of our oceans. This gigantic and terrifying marine creature stretches beyond the pages of the Bible to anchor its presence in mythology and religion. In ancient Hebrew mythology, the Leviathan is described as a sea serpent. sometimes with 7 heads, that represents chaos and destruction. This image of the Leviathan as a chaotic force is reflected in its role in various religious and cultural traditions. In Jewish mythology, the Leviathan is seen as a dragon that resides over the sources of the abyss and that will be served as food to the Jewish people at the end of times. This vision of the Leviathan as a creature that will be defeated and used for the benefit of the faithful reflects a belief in divine justice and the final triumph of good over evil. Christianity also reinterpreted the Leviathan, associating it with envy and considering it one of the 7 princes of hell. In this context, the Leviathan symbolizes one of the capital sins and acts as a reminder of the spiritual struggle against the forces of evil. In Gnosticism, the Leviathan is seen as a Ouroboros, a giant serpent that divides the material realm from the divine, encircling the world. This interpretation emphasizes the duality and the eternal cycle of life and death, as well as the barrier between the earthly and the spiritual. The figure of the Leviathan has also been used in literature and popular culture as a symbol of power, mystery, and danger. Its name evokes images of marine creatures gigantic and unknown that awaken as much fear as fascination. The Leviathan, in the rich tapestry of mythology and religion, is a figure that has evolved from its biblical roots to become a complex and multifaceted symbol. In the Talmud, the Leviathan is not only a creature to be defeated, but also a part of creation that God uses to teach and demonstrate his power. The Talmudic narrative presents us with a day in the life of God, divided into 4 segments of 3 hours. In this account, the last 3 hours are dedicated to divine interaction with the Leviathan, suggesting a relationship that goes beyond antagonism, towards one of entertainment or even pedagogy. In demonology, the Leviathan acquires a darker connotation, being considered a powerful aquatic demon and part of a false diabolical trinity along with Lucifer. This interpretation reflects the human tendency to personify evil and chaos in figures that can be understood and ultimately confronted. Throughout history, the Leviathan has been the subject of many interpretations and myths, some of which have no biblical grounding. However, what remains constant is the belief that it will be God who finally defeats it at the end of times, symbolizing the ultimate victory over evil and chaos. The Leviathan, as a dragon of the ocean depths, has also been associated with Satan, reinforcing its role as an adversary in the religious narrative. This theme, surrounded by mystery and debate, continues to be a subject of conversation and reflection. As we conclude this video, we have explored the origin, description, and significance of the Leviathan, a mythological creature that appears in various ancient sources. We hope that this exploration has been enriching and has provided a new perspective on this fascinating and mysterious beast. We invite viewers to share their opinions and to continue discussion in the comments. We appreciate your attention and support, and we hope that this journey through mythology and religion has been as intriguing for you as it has been for us. May the blessing and company of God be with you always. Until the next video.